the internet, like pictures of different, like Athena or Diana or different gods and goddesses, saints, spiritual pictures, things that are inspirational, whatever it is that floats your boat, doesn't really matter what it is, anything that you connect to. And there is sticker paper that you can buy, sticker paper that comes in like a vinyl, and you can print it out on your printer, cut it out, and just put stickers on any kind of book, including this. And in fact, that is more likely what I would do if I were to like do this now. I would just cover it in vinyl stickers, because it's easier. It's not as much of a pain in the butt. But now that I have cut this out, I will go ahead and glue it. And all you need to do that is just the super cheapo kids glue. You don't need special glue, and then you just put paper in it. So I'm sure everybody at some point has done a project where you made a book cover. I will kind of show you what it looks like to do it. You probably don't need me to, but I will, because we are going to kind of include that in this channel while I talk about some of this stuff, and about other ideas and how to use journals besides just this. And we're doing this project first because what I want you guys to do is to start to document things for yourself. There is a certain school of that also really likes to sort of create their own alphabet. And I would say if you're really into making stuff sort of, you want to keep it secret and you want to have a secret, then come up with some cool, your own variation, have a key somewhere and try to learn, make your own alphabet. So that might be kind of a fun project to do if you're really into sort of ciphers and things like that. And the other thing I want to say is, besides a dream journal, it's also really important, I think, to keep a journal for your thoughts and also for your goals. And especially when we get into 2025, into the beginning of the year, I'm going to talk more about this, but I have found, and I've talked to a lot of people over the years who have done this, and they were not necessarily people, they were mostly creatives. They weren't people like, new age people or, super spiritual people. They were just sort of creatives. And they told me, a lot of them, that they found it really amazingly helpful to write down their goals and write them down in sort of like 1 through 10 or whatever, in different sort of amounts of time, like the next year, the next 5 years, the next 10 years. But all of these goals should be sort of attainable, especially the first year. And when you write down your goals, for example, you say you're going to do one for 2025. Your first goal, they should be goals that are attainable, but also sort of they really focus on your true ambitions and what you really want out of your life. Meaning they shouldn't be just sort of, I want to get together with Mike, or I want this, I want this Lamborghini or whatever. There should be things like, okay, so say you work at you work in, I'm trying to think of a job that, would kind of lend itself. You work in sales. Okay. You work in a dealership, an auto dealership, and you normally sell, about $50,000 you make a year. Well, if you really, you want to increase your wealth or your thing, you would put, I want to make $75,000 next year. Not something like totally ridiculous, like I'm going to make $1 million, but something attainable. You put these attainable goals, and this sounds weird, and you don't have to think about them after that. So you say that, okay, and then maybe you've always wanted to go to France. I want to be able to go to France in the next 5 years. You've always wanted to go on a spiritual retreat. You've always wanted to write a book, a children's book, whatever it is. I've always wanted to learn how to paint. I've always wanted to, go on an adventure. I always wanted to go hiking up through the Grand Canyon. Whatever whatever thing it is that's always fascinated you or that you've wanted to do, write it down and put it in one of the segments of time frame that you think is reasonable, like in the next year, in the next 5 years, the next 10 years, and just write it down and let it sit. Don't think about it. Don't worry about it. Just let it sit. And how does it work? How does that work that you would write something down and don't even think about it? Because basically what you're doing is you're putting this idea into your unconscious, your subconscious mind. You're basically programming yourself to focus on some level and the deeper part of you to start to think and kind of aim yourself in a certain direction. We do it all the time. We just don't do it consciously. Instead of talking meanly to yourself, and a lot of people really talk smack to themselves. They say things like, well, I didn't deserve that. I'm not good enough. This or that. Practice catching yourself doing that and practice things like, no, I am a good person. I'm going to do good work. For example, if you want to make a difference in the world, it doesn't really take that much to do it. It seems overwhelming, but when you take a baby step towards that, it builds and builds and builds. So say this year you decide, I really want to help the homeless. Instead of having a fantasy about, oh, I have to win the lottery, I have to do this and do that and all these things first, just start with, how can I help them with something I have now? Like, oh, I love to knit. I'll knit some hats and I'm going to give them to homeless people. Or maybe I'll join an organization or start an organization that makes things that are useful for people who are homeless. Or maybe I know a skill set and I can go and teach at the local shelter some of my skills. Whatever it is, think about it. And just by writing it down and putting it in your journal, that it starts to get your brain working and it starts to actually move you in that direction. So that's why I'm saying you don't have to think about it. You just write it down and leave it there and let your unconscious kind of answer those questions and those goals for you and follow your heart because that's what it's all about. So we're going to go ahead and make the journal right now. And I'm not going to decorate it right now, but you get the idea. All you need is I have a giant bunch of, because I've been collecting pencils for a long time, for years and years. Some of these pencils are literally from when I was a teenager, but you just get yourself some decent pencils, colored pencils like this. And I would suggest one thing don't do when you're doing the journal is use pencils or acrylic paint. Do not use anything messy like charcoal, even regular pencils that have graphite. Don't use pastels of any kind, soft or oil pastels, because you're just never going to be there. It's always going to get off on your, you won't be able to use your journal